Hello, I'm Dr. John Sanders, family physician at Voyage Clinics Podcast. Today we're visiting about really mental health and emotional intelligence. And one of my favorite people, Zak Hazlett, is here with us. Zak is, I've known him for a long time. We're actually good buddies. I've known him since he was in high school, and we played some basketball together. He schooled me back then. I don't know if he could school me anymore. I don't play ball anymore, but maybe pickleball, I get you. As far as like a bio for him, he's been a river guide for a long time. He's now a therapist. He's the founder of Get Outside Together, a Moab-based community that blends outdoor adventure and self-growth and connection. He's really raised on the rivers like a river rat. I mean, you could tell just by like his looks, this guy like is basically a river guide. And he spent more than a decade guiding on like heavy duty stuff, Cataract Canyon. I've gotten to go down that with his family before with my family, and that was
a good trip.
That's a really good trip. That's some intense stuff. Westwater, all those other things. Your master's degree is in marriage and family therapy, and really kind of merging. Like we've been in contact along your journey, even like pre all that, and I see your passion for just kind of blending the outdoors with mental wellness, and I think that's super cool. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey and kind of what brought you in this direction and your passions.
Cool. Where to begin? First, thanks for having me. I always love catching up with people, especially those that have been along the journey. Like you said, it has been a journey for sure. I think starting just from the beginning, growing up on the river has definitely impacted my life in ways that I wasn't able to see until looking back now. And that was the initial thing that drew me to wanting to pursue what I'm doing now, because I saw how much it healed me and my relationships with my friends and family and people that would come on the river with me. It's you go on the river for 4 or 5 days, and the connection that you have with those people is unlike anything else. And I wasn't until more recently in grad school, I studied outdoor recreation and family cohesion or togetherness and what kind of causes that connection. And something that I've realized that is huge. We hear all the time people say shared experiences. That's what drives connection, right? When we share an experience, but we share experiences every day with people and still don't feel very connected. Yeah. And that's because it's not just the shared experience, it's the emotion behind the shared experience. So when you're day to day just alongside people, you might be a little frustrated or sad or happy for moments, but kind of few and far between are the emotions. But on a rafting trip or outside in nature, you're feeling like a sense of exhilaration, adrenaline rushes. You've got all sorts of connection going on. You're laughing, you're crying, you're feeling all the feels. It's really hot. It's really cold in the water. You're afraid of the rapids. So you've got this fear, and you're experiencing that fear together. And those are those things where all of those emotions, I feel like they're kind of like these attaching cords that, hook to you and me because we're going through that together.
Yep.
And I think that's what's been so powerful to see over the years as a river guide, not as a therapist. I didn't even know what was going on with the emotions, but I was seeing the connection happen. And now later, after researching and getting into the field that I'm in, understanding a little more why, that's been something that drives the passion of what I do, because I wish, like, my business is called Get Outside Together. And my dream is for it to be a nonprofit that's like totally accessible to everyone, regardless of socioeconomic status or how far away you are in the world. I want people that feel like they need it, that they need to be there, to be able to be there. Because I think that's what the world needs a little more of.
I love it. I remember during our Cataract Canyon trip, I'm pretty sure I peed my pants like 4 times. There was a lot of fear. I mean, this is like it's the highest class rapids that you could do. It was like an 8,000 foot drop over like 24. Tell me what it is.
It's far. Yeah. I mean, Cataract Canyon is class 4 and 5 rapids, 3, 4, and 5 rapids. And over the course of 4 or 5 days, we're doing all of these things. So it's big water, it's big rapids. And if you have never done it before, it's a little daunting. Yet also, I will say, don't freak out too much, because it's doable. Anyone can do it. But it really pushes you out of your comfort zone a little bit, for sure.
Yeah. One time we were on a raft, my wife and I, and we were paddling or whatever, and we hit this spot, and I forget, the guide was, your dad was like, Anyway, there was a miscommunication. He hit this one, the hole, and my wife and I went poop poop, and we fell into this hole. And the holes just kind of like pull you and hold you, and they eventually, you don't panic, you just rest and relax and try not to swim because you're not sure if you're upside down or whatever. And several times, like, I felt like something hit my head, and anyway, we eventually get spit out of this hole, my wife and I get out, and she's like, yeah, I don't know, something was hitting my knee when I was down. My wife was telling me this. I'm like, that was my head, babe. Like, we were just tumbling in there together. But you're right. Like those intense moments, like you're in the trenches, you're building relationship and you're doing hard things and fun things together. And I think it's super rad. And we'll always remember that trip with your family. Like, it's super cool. And the connections, you're right. Like the meaningful connections that we made are deepened by the intensity of that thing. Yeah. It's super cool. Super cool. What was it tell us a little bit about your personal, like, kind of like maybe your emotional journey or your mental health journey as you were drawn to like marriage and family therapy. You noticed like the connection piece with all of it. And then, like, I think emotional wellness, emotional IQ, relationship connection, these are things that I'm super passionate about. And I'm just like, I'm a family doc, but I think, man, the emotional intelligence is so, so important in our lives. And what was it that pulled you in that direction?
Yeah. This one, anytime there's a question like this asked, it like triggers a little bit of emotion in me because I still feel like I'm in the process of developing that. I mean, obviously, like maybe have done a lot of work, but I think I look back on my life and there's been such positives and I don't like the word negatives, but like there's been some really beautiful things and some really hard things. And one of them was not ever feeling good enough, not ever feeling like I had people there for me, which is funny because I have a great family and I have, good friends and community support. But it is just interesting how, as we're developing and when our brains develop and as we're younger, it doesn't take much to feel that way. Mm-hmm. And so I just remember feeling like I have no friends, nobody cares about me, or like I can't do anything right. And there's lots of stories that we could get into later on, but for the sake of time here, basically just feeling like even when I was trying my best and doing things well, I didn't feel good enough, or I'd have people say or do things behind my back that were hurtful. And I just didn't understand. I was like, wait, you guys are my friends, or you say you're my friends, or I think you're my friends. Why would you do this? So my construct and like paradigm around friendship was just fighting with itself because I was like, well, I feel like friends should be this, and I was my favorite like definition of friends. I feel like best friends, real friends are the people who will tease you to your face. They'll laugh with you and have fun with you. And then they'll absolutely stand up for you behind your back. And that wasn't happening. I was getting the teasing, but like it was continuing afterwards. And so there was not a lot of trust there. So I learned to be my own friend. I learned to kind of take care of myself and not rely on other people, which has gotten me to some good self-compassion and kindness, and also makes it hard for me to really lean into some friendships. And so this journey, long story short, this journey has basically gotten to a point where I know what it's like for people to feel alone and like they don't have support and they don't have friends. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that friendship and that love and kindness that I needed desperately when I was struggling with others. And so everything that I do, whether it's social media, my posts on Instagram, it's all like stuff from my journal that I wrote down and said to myself at some point. So now I just record it and say it out to the world, and it reaches a lot of people and a lot of people feel that. And then with my river trips and the community building, that's just what we lack. Like if I could give any advice to anyone from a mental health standpoint, it's that the phones that we use are actually making our life so much harder. And you know that, but they're making our life so much harder. And also we lack the friendships and the community that we need. And we feel this weird, I guess, how do I phrase this? if I were to say it for myself, I would be like, it's so hard to make friends. Like, where do I find the right people? Like, I get that question all the time, and I've felt that at times. And the thing is, there are so many people, like there are literally people out there right now that are by themselves wishing for a friend like you, wishing for a friend like me, and they just don't know where to find them. But there are so many people like that. So when we put ourselves out there a little bit out of our comfort zone, maybe go to the park and read a book. And if you see somebody else reading a book, like say hi. Is that a little scary? Does that feel kind of weird? Yeah, but only because we've been cultured into feeling like it's weird to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
When in reality, like that's not weird at all. Like say hi. They probably are looking for a friend too. And if not, they're going to be like, oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm reading, some Shakespeare. I'm really into it. Cool. Well, I hope you have a good day. Nothing's lost, but everything could be gained. Yeah. And it's just like it's scary. It really is, but it's so doable. So when you do those things that you enjoy doing, yoga or running, run clubs or biking or foraging for mushrooms, maybe you don't find people as much up in the mountains.
No, it's just me.
Yeah, just you. But you get the point. It's like when you're doing things that you really like and you start to align your life with what you enjoy doing, you'll find other people that also are in a similar spot as you.
Man, I love this discussion around friendship, and I'd love to dive into it a little bit. I actually recently constructed some heavy thoughts on friendship and being a good friend and the skills around like the art of friendship. And I think I think sometimes we are so busy, we're so caught up, and I know that I've been a bad friend for years for folks. Like, my ability to connect and reconnect has been poor because largely I'm in a very demanding profession. I'm up at 3 a.m. delivering a baby. I got to work at 7 a.m. So those are excuses, but
only, they're real.
Yeah. But recently I have had just a gift of friendship from another friend of mine. And it's just funny how it started. Guys tend to build friendship around like, hey man, you need some help with your whatever? You know what? I could use a hand, And so I go over and I need this piece of wood cut. This guy has a sweet saw in his shop, and we just kind of talk, and I don't know him. He doesn't know me. I just heard about him, and I heard he had a wood shop. And so I'm like, hey, can I cut this piece of wood? He's like, sure. And so I went and cut the wood, and then we just talked for a little while. And a couple days later, I just went back over there, and I'm like, hey, man, like, thanks for helping me cut that piece of wood. And it was fun talking to you. Like, you need some help cleaning this place up? Because I noticed his wood shop was a horrific disaster like mine is now. And so he's like, what do you mean? Nah, man, you don't have to help me. And I'm like, nah, man, I want to. Like, let's just do this thing. So then we just were sweeping up his wood chips and all of his stuff and talking. And that just blossomed this beautiful friendship. And as we talked, multiple times I'd go over there and we just have like shop time, guys out in the wood shop, just, you got a cool piece of wood. Oh, cool, man. I'm going to make this thing. And we just talk and hang out. And over the course of those discussions, I asked him, I was like, hey man, like, what is this thing? Like, what was the difference here? Like, I feel like this is pretty awesome. And he's like, well, I think like a lot of people have come over to use my wood shop. I've cut a lot of pieces of wood for folks. But you're like one of the only ones that came back and helped me out with stuff. And I just thought, man, that's so cool. And after, time, he would just do simple things. He'd just like text me, hey man, have a good day. Like simple. It didn't take a lot of energy, a lot of effort. The other thing that I really liked about our friendship, and we're still buds, but like, is that there's no expectation. Like, he's just like, cool, you want to do this thing? No, I can't. All right, cool. Or, hey, can you come camping with me? Yeah, I can go. Okay, cool. There's no like strings or like expectations of that relationship with me. And I don't know, I've just learned a lot about friendship from this guy who's just super good at friendship. Yeah. And so he still checks in on me, and we'll visit every once in a while, and just, I think it's that continued effort to reconnect, and then just check in a non-invasive, non-intrusive, no expectation way that he's taught me how to be a better friend for sure.
I love that. I love when you in that story, you were like, he was explaining, I've cut a lot of wood for a lot of people, but you're the only one that came back. And that that hits the heart a little bit, because I think that's what happens. We have this weird tendency as people to try and like prove our worth to the wrong people, or like show up for them until they'll show up for us, until they'll come back. Expectations, right? Expectations are linked. And the reality is that like, we're not meant to prove worth to anyone. And the more we try to prove our worth to anyone is the more we're going to feel worthless, because we're going to throw all this energy and time and effort into them and then feel depleted without getting anything in return. Yeah. And the expectations is real, because it doesn't take much, right? It's like, sometimes you have a lot to give. Sometimes I have a lot to give as a friendship. And so the expectation is not that we're 50-50 all the time. Mm-mm. It simply is that you will come back and you'll check in, even if that's all you can do. That's all it takes to be a friend, because there's trust there. And that's, I think, something that, if I could give any advice on friendships here, there are so many people, once again, like I was talking about earlier, that want to be your friend, that if people aren't reciprocating that, there's a time and a place. Like, yeah, sometimes you want to invest a little bit more, but leave for a sports analogy, leave the ball in their court for a minute. Like, sometimes they just are overwhelmed and got a lot going on, and then focus elsewhere and lean into some other friendships and relationships. And if they have the energy and can come back and can give enough to let you know that it's real and it's not just, hey, I need help again, like I need you, right? They're able to give back. Then you're a little bit more able to see it clearly and decide for yourself, oh, maybe this is time to let go of this friendship, and it's been good and I still care, but I'm going to focus here where people can also fill my cup, and I'm not just filling theirs all the time. Yeah.
What are some of the skills that we can have to be cup fillers or day makers? I'm going to make your day.
Ooh, a day maker. I like that.
How can we show up such that we are, because if we're waiting for friendship to come to us, then I think that might not be super hyper productive. But totally. If we show up well, are there certain mindset things or skill things that you can think of that might assist us in this journey of like really sincerely connecting and reconnecting and being a good friend?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I haven't had it framed to me exactly that way, but I was on a rafting trip this last week with a bunch of people from all over, and it was super fun. And we were talking about dating. And so in this context, it works as well, where I think one of the greatest ways to develop good friendships, some develop as you kind of heal and unpack things together, and that's great. But sometimes we attract the type of people that are going to fill something in us that we feel like we need. And so to deepen that a little bit is, if we feel like we're not lovable, maybe we're confident in other ways, but like love and loving relationship, then we're gonna let someone give us a little bit of love and feel like that is everything. Right? Even when nothing else is actually happening, like they're not consistent, they're not whatever, but they give us a little bit of love every once in a while. So it satisfies that void that we're feeling.
It might not be healthy.
Yeah. And so that's when we get stuck in some friendships and relationships that are unhealthy and not great. And so the contrast of that, the opposite thing, is realizing that you have that void. So the self-awareness work, the accountability work, like, oh, I struggle with self-love. I struggle with some self-compassion. So when I get it from other people, I get sucked in because it feels good. So recognizing that pattern and then doing some work to build some self-love and build some self-compassion, so that instead of filling a void, you become a mirror. You become a mirror that reflects what you need and want in a relationship or in a friendship. And the only people that actually fit are people that reflect it. And they won't ever be exactly the same as you, and we'll all be working on different things at different times. But the majority of what you see in them as you look at them is going to be a reflection of what you are, not what you need, but what you are.
So what I'm hearing is doing personal emotional intelligence work, finding the voids, finding the blind spots that we might have, and then working those out, filling them up, and then showing up more whole. So then we can kind of mirror a relationship that is whole to someone else, and then they can hopefully reflect that back to us if they're capable, but and willing or whatever.
Well, I heard this quote one time that it was like, everyone has baggage, and some people will just avoid you because they're like, I don't want to carry that. And then the right people will unpack that with you. And they can do that because they know what it's like to unpack those things. And so that's why I say we've got to be doing the work, because if we just have this massive suitcase of stuff, that's daunting. But if we have this suitcase of stuff that we're unpacking and they're also unpacking, then we become like this body double, right? We're just there and we're unpacking it together. And so it's so like, I can't pack for you. I can't unpack for you. You can't do the same for me, but we can unpack it together. And that's something I think that is huge too, is being willing and open to work together in those things. And I can imagine right now people listening, they're like, yeah, well, how do we do the self-care work? How do we learn to love ourselves? How do we, that's the frustration of all of it. And what I have to say to that is start small. We get so overwhelmed in this world that we're living in right now, feeling like we have to be a certain thing in order to be happy, in order to feel successful, whatever it may be. But the only way to get to a place that we want to be is by starting with a little step. And the greatest successes, I mean, you look at your business, I look at where I am right today. Man, do you know how many times I cried and stressed and felt like a failure on the journey here? And I still sometimes feel some imposter syndrome. Like I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. But if I look at where I was to where I am now and look at all the tiny little steps that I made and the times when I fell back and when I, broke down and had to get myself back up or had friends helping me get back up, I'm so grateful for all of those tiny little steps. And I never did one big grandiose thing to get me there. Not once. And that's what the trick is. There's no secret. The secret is there's no secret other than showing up for yourself, just like you would a friend, right?
Yeah. I love the vulnerability space. Like if you can unpack with someone who can also unpack with you, there's a vulnerability there that builds a sincerity of friendship. Here in Utah, in Utah County, sometimes there's a very strong religious predominance. Like 98% of the people in my community are like predominantly LDS, and I've felt a lot of shallowness with regard to friendship there, and it just, I don't know what that is. It's like, oh, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. We're good with God and we're good with our religion. I guess we're good. And there's also like a unwillingness to unpack because we're like,
it's scary.
Well, it's scary, but I'm like, hey, but like, yeah, hey, this is my church stuff. This is your church stuff. And if you unpack with me, maybe you're less than in the church ladder spectrum ideology. And I've unpacked that whole thing and deconstructed that whole thing.
So if we were to put like a word on that, I'd be like shame probably about things, or what would you?
Yeah, I guess like I'm not sure what that force is that is preventing folks in our community specifically, but probably in all communities this happens to some degree, is like a fear of that vulnerability because of maybe there is some shame associated with it, or being perceived as less than or unworthy in like this kind of culture thing. And that's super annoying and super frustrating because I think it kills connection and true friendship and really true progression because you have to unpack that stuff. You have to be willing to just get really raw. And the people that are like my buddy who I'm really close with, he's not religious at all. And there's no preconceived anything there. And it's kind of refreshing to have a conversation with someone like that where we can unpack whatever, and there's no judgment from me to him or from him to me. Yeah. And it's really comfortable, I think. And if we could just be that even in a religion state, like it's okay to unpack stuff with me. I'm
a very visual person. So as you were explaining that and going along with the analogy we were just doing, I imagined these people like hiding these suitcases behind them as they're trying to meet. Oh, like, oh, hey, what's your name? Like, how are you doing? You're like, welcome to the neighborhood. And they just don't want anyone to see that they even have a suitcase, let alone what's inside of it. Right. When in reality, what we need is to like everybody be able to lay it all out there and be like, hey, I'm me. This is what you get. And I'm willing to show up as me. But that's, I think there's some fear, some shame, a little bit of guilt probably for things in the past that we are ashamed of.
The power of friendship, I think, is so clutch. And I don't think it has to be quantity as much as quality. And even just this one guy who I can just We can go camping and we can unpack whatever we want, and we can talk about whatever we want. And it's been super, super satisfying. I show up in a way, and I think a way of viewing the world that's really, really healthy is I just love people. I see them, I see their heart and I see their mind, and I show up sincerely believing that everyone is a good person. There's like a very, very small percentage of truly evil people in the world. And so my openness and willingness to connect with folks is really high. And whether it's at, playing pickleball or wherever I'm at, I think that's really healthy also, just to have that mindset that like most people are beautiful. Yeah. And yes, we all have baggage. We all have faults. I call it being beautifully broken. I think everybody is beautifully broken, and we all have cracks, and we all have, epoxy holding us together in some spots, but it's beautiful. And what's wrong with connecting with those folks? I think it's cool.
It's like that. I forget who said it. I think Henry B. Eyring actually, but he said something along the lines of, if you assume that someone is struggling, you'll probably be right. And that changed, that mindset changed things for me, because I'm similar to you. If I just see people and I'm like, man, I want to know their story. I want to know what's going on in their life behind the scenes and why they are the way they are. And if you assume bad things about someone, then you miss out on that opportunity because you put up a wall. And I think judgment is something where some people, especially in our society now, where a lot of crazy stuff happens, we have to judge a little bit. Like, we have to protect ourselves. We can't just willy-nilly go out in everywhere. We have to make some judgments to protect ourselves. But I think the more we assume that people are struggling and practice trusting that intuition and, reaching out to those, then we start to be able to see people for who they really are a little bit better. And I don't know, I'm a firm believer that at the end of our lives, we're going to look back on our lives, and the things that we will cherish the most are the moments where we either were an angel in someone else's life or someone else was an angel in ours. Meaning that you said hi, you lent them a hand to help them up. You asked how they were doing, like in a moment that they were in maybe one of their darkest, deepest moments. All you did was smile, right? You were a day maker.
Be the day maker.
You just showed up and you said hi. You took this much energy out of your life and day and your cup and poured it into them. That was enough to just kickstart it, even this much. And then that gets the ball rolling, right? They feel seen, they feel valued, they feel like they're good enough to survive, oftentimes even.
We're all on our journeys, our emotional journeys are, and I love what you said, like, I've studied this for a while and I'm still like figuring out emotional intelligence, and so am I. I'm like maybe twice your age, and I'm still unpacking emotional intelligence. There's blind spots all the time. We don't even know we got them. Mm-hmm. And one of the things in me that helped me with some of my blind spots is talking with somebody. That's helpful. But also just recognizing my feelings. And I'm like, I don't really like feeling angry. Why am I getting angry at this situation a lot? Or why am I getting really frustrated? Or why am I feeling negatively or sad or anxious? Or I try to recognize if I'm feeling a certain thing, then I'm like, there's probably a blind spot in my thinking that I don't see. I don't see it. For a long time, I was like, I would get really mad. Like, my kids are doing this and I'd be like, Ugh. This is not it, right? This is not it, guys. It's so I'm getting mad about it. And then I noticed like maybe that's not like the best way, right? And so it took me a while to recognize like I don't like feeling this way, constantly frustrated at my kids or my wife for doing it wrong or blah, blah, blah. And one time, and this is going to tie into our segue into nature medicine and nature wellness. One time I was up in the mountains by myself foraging, and I just love this act. I think there's some EMDR stuff there because I'm scanning the ground.
Yeah, your eyes.
There's a little pop of dopamine as I find that yummy mushroom. And it's just emotional processing time. And as I was up there processing my frustration at this or that, and just unpacking with myself, looking for a blind spot that I might not be seeing, it dawned upon me. I was raised in a family very militant, right? My dad was a gangster, and he's like, you're out of line, you're getting your butt whipped and you line out. And I thought that's what dads do, right? We just line our kids out, and sometimes our wives, and everybody, that's our job. And I was up there foraging, and I just took a deep breath, and there's like Doug fir and like mushroom scent and rain, and it was so good. And I was like, maybe that's not it. And my brain was just like, yeah, you dummy, like you've been thinking this way forever, but maybe that's not the way. And so it allowed me space to rethink that thought process. And then I said, well, what if it's not my job to constantly line out everything that's wrong in the world around me? And maybe I can do it in a different way, than getting angry. And so I pumped the brakes on that in my home front. And I didn't like willy-nilly, okay, do whatever you want, guys, blah, blah. But I was just more cognizant of, am I overbearing in this endeavor? Am I getting super mad? Like, instead, I was just like, you know what? She's a grown woman, just my wife. She's wonderful. And I'm just going to listen to her frustration or her thing. And I'm going to say, awesome. And let her sort that out, because she can. And she's brilliant. Like, my wife is brilliant. And so instead of me having to take it upon me as the doctor to have the solution and let me help you with that thing. Yeah. So anyway, I think it just helped me not only in my relationship with my wife, because I was just let me just get off your case to try to fix you, and you can fix yourself, but we can communicate about things and still have like conflict or whatever. But I just deconstructed that thought process that it's my job to line out my kids, my wife, everybody around me. And it was so healthy for me. It was just so healthy. In nature, just taking a deep breath, emotionally processing, scanning the ground for mushrooms, there was a moment of clarity. And I'd like to just segue to kind of nature and some of the, there's studies in nature medicine. I like lifestyle medicine and functional medicine. And one of the courses I went to a couple of years ago was talking about nature medicine. And there are actually studies that show like people who spend more time in nature have less stress, less heart attacks, less strokes, like better overall health and wellness, less anxiety, less depression. Like it's bountiful. Like we are programmed to be out in nature and connecting with the universe and with trees and with the earth and touching ground.
Yeah. No, that's a great segue. Well, before we do that, I just wanted to say for anyone listening, I think one of the greatest, and John touched on it just barely, one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is the gift of self-awareness and accountability. I think we get so stuck in this blame game where we're blaming ourselves or we're blaming others, but blame doesn't create growth. Blame is like this excuse. It's like, blame creates shame and guilt within us, which don't really motivate us greatly. I think there's a time and a place, feeling like a little bit of shame for something that's a really bad thing or guilt for something. Then that drives us into wanting to change. But then the motivation, the desire, and the ability have to line up. So once we have the want, we have the desire to change, then we have to have the belief that we're worth changing. And shame and guilt are like these anchors that hold us down. So it might make us feel like we need to, but then we have no motivation to actually do that work. So really shifting the blame away from us of like, okay, yeah, I made some mistakes. I've done some things and said some things that have hurt people. I want to let go of that. I want to move forward. I want to change. I need to take accountability for the role that I played in the situation that I'm in, not just say, oh, well, he said this or she did this or because of this or my parents this or I grew up here and that. That's like one of the most limiting beliefs that we can have. And so as we move forward in life, seriously, one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is releasing and forgiving ourselves for the things that we've done, while also kind of relentlessly pursuing growth and doing it because we believe that we're worth it, and that the work we do, like you're saying, is going to impact our entire family, our immediate family now, our like generations after, the people in our community around us. It is absolutely worth it to do the work on yourself.
As a parent, as a father, loving father to my children, this is such an opportunity to teach your children this. There's a natural, nobody likes to own up to it. Nobody. Like, it feels uncomfortable. I'm owning this thing that was crappy. And my kids, I'm like, hey, I see that this thing happened. And they're like, yeah, well, it was blah, 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 blah. And they're like pointing fingers and everyone else is to blame. And I'm like, son, like, listen, just own this. Just own it. This is something that you did wrong. And the shame and the guilt, they cry, they feel so horrible. And I'm like, but listen, it doesn't make you a bad person. I've messed up like this before. This is normal stuff. And it is not a big deal. Let's move through this. Own it. Don't push it off over there, because then you'll never learn from it. Own it, and then just trust that it's okay. And as a dad, man, that's so powerful for a kid to hear their dad say, it's okay for you to own it, and I love you, and it doesn't make you a bad person. It's okay. Like, we've all been here. We've all done this. One time my dad, I did some stupid thing. I don't even remember what it was. And what I did was I went to him and I told him, Dad, I did this thing and it was wrong and I messed up. And my dad, he was like, I told you he was a really bad dictator. He would whip us with a belt. And that was the time when he's like, son, because you came to me and you owned up to it, that was his words, you owned up to it, you don't get a butt whipping.
You're like...
And I'm like, what's going on? Yeah. You mean I'm like, but that was so powerful to me because I had done the opposite. I had
say that shifted like your belief around.
Totally. I had done like broke a thing and then I put it back together and then
you're like, I wasn't.
Then Dad found out about it and I was like, oh, and then of course he found out and then I got my butt whipped. But this time I went to him and I owned it, and that process in my heart of being courageous enough to go to that place and say, look, I need to own this with you. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. It's powerful for our own development. It's super good.
Well, and I think going along with that, and then we're going into nature, because I love nature.
Let's go nature.
But that's where it's so important. Like you can only do so much work on yourself, and then you have to heal within the parameters of a relationship, whether it's friendship or family or, romantic, whatever it is. We get to a point where it's like, okay, I need to be in a container here that allows me to mess up and have a different reaction from someone like that, right? That wasn't a different person. It was a different reaction, but that different reaction changed everything in how your brain was wired to respond to that shame and guilt, right? So with friendships and things, that's why I say, don't try and stay in a place where you're not feeling safe, where you're not feeling encouraged and, loved, for lack of a better word. That's an all-inclusive word. Because there's people and places that will do that for you. And that's how you'll be able to then grow and heal. And then your mirror, once again, you won't be looking for something or someone to fill the void. You'll be looking for someone that reflects it. So, okay, jumping to nature because it's so good. You were talking about foraging and how you can just go and like kind of reset your mind. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this. I know you're the host, but this is something that I think is fascinating.
Let's go.
How these phones are just this cheap dopamine that happens so quickly. And when we actually, speaking of, it's like vibrating right now.
I'm killing it. That's dead.
Are these things that they occupy so much of our mind. I think I was just reading that the average screen time for like an adult in the US is like almost 7 hours a day. That's like a full-time job a day, every day. That's the average. So there's people that are higher and there's some people that are lower. And if we were to just look and see what they were doing with their time, I would bet there's a strong correlation between screen time being down and time spent outdoors, time spent outside.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
100%. When I'm up in the mountains, I don't even have a drive to touch my phone. Like, it's gone. And I'm not sure why. And it turns out I feel like the Amish were right. Like, we just need to get rid of the technology. Let's get back to the woods and making bread and putting together some sweet furniture. But like, there's something there that it helps reset your circuits. We're definitely in this bath of dopamine, right? Like all the things, like the caffeine consumption, the stimulants.
We all love a good bath, let's be honest.
Yeah, we do.
It feels nice. It feels really good.
Doom scrolling, we're like drooling ever so slightly. The gaming, like these kids gaming, it's all dopamine bath. And with that, excess dopamine does to your internal ability to create dopamine is it lowers it. So then what you have is when you take that away, you have a pretty severe lack of motivation, drive. Like your kid just played 12 hours of video games and now he won't even get out of bed. And unless you turn on the video game, then he'll touch it again because it gives him more than normal dopamine. Yeah. And so I think this is a problem with some of the missionaries going out on their missions, and they're like, they just drop off the dopamine session. But anyway, I think this is a big problem in our society, and it's one that bears like at least being cognizant of. And then I think there's some science behind 3 days without the extra dopamine stuff in the wilderness is where your dopamine receptors reset, and then you start producing a reasonable amount of dopamine that your body is naturally producing.
Oh, that's fascinating and good to hear, because I just got back off of a 5-day retreat trip. So I took people from all over the world on a 5-day Cataract Canyon trip, like we had talked about in the beginning, where day 1, they literally checked their phones in at the office. They left them there, didn't even bring them. So they couldn't even reach in their pocket and scroll through, old messages or photos, or they weren't even taking pictures. I brought a photographer. It was just be present with no electronics, no technology. And it was interesting to see how day 1, we're still a little on edge. You get some phantom vibrations in your pockets. You feel like you need to check something. Day 2, I know. Day 2, you're like, you'll catch yourself like moving your thumb like this, like you're texting someone.
You're twitching.
No, not really, but kind of. And then by day 3, like you're saying, the dopamine's learning to respond more and be like, oh, we need some more of this. So then you're seeing a little critter run across the beach, or, you're putting your feet in the sand in the water, you're grounding yourself there, and you're getting the natural dopamine, which then is what I like to think of it is, it's like a gentle rain. Like natural dopamine is just like this gentle rain that when it's consistently kind of happening, just is really nice. It keeps things clean. It makes that nice smell that the ground has. Mm-hmm. And then like the dopamine that we get from phones or games or TV or whatever is like a flash flood that ends in ruin, right? It usually causes damage. It's really intense for a little bit, and then it leaves us picking up the pieces afterwards. And so to watch that physically happen to everyone on that trip over the course of a few days, and then get to the end, and when they got back to get their phones, they had this aversion to it. They were like, I don't even want to turn it on. Like it was like this repulsion that you had because you knew what it felt like to have a reset, and you didn't want to have that back. And I wish everyone could have that opportunity, because I just checked a message actually from that group chat of the trip, and one of the people on it sent in and was just telling about all the different things that she's noticing about herself and goals that she has moving forward. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful to just see like all that had shifted in the plan moving forward, and the motivation that she and I and everyone else had to just be more present with ourselves. And I think nature is obviously, getting rid of your phones is hard, and it's connected to work and everything. And, our lives revolve around it a little bit, which is an unfortunate thing. But there are ways to intentionally detach from that. And being outside, like you said, I don't even want to be on my phone. So if you just tell yourself, I'm going to leave my phone on the counter over here, and I'm going to, go to the kitchen and make some food, you're going to be like, where's that phone? Like you're going to be looking over your shoulder the whole time trying to get it. You don't actually detach from it, which then actually gives some of that dopamine, because it's like, ooh, creeping in, Whereas when you're outside, you get distracted by life and like all the things happening around you. Yeah. And so I just think that's why nature is so powerful. That's why getting outside is so powerful, and it's necessary, and people just need to do it more.
Yeah, totally. One of the things that I do to like disconnect from my phone is I sand these little pieces of wood. I call them serenity wood. They're just calming. And I can't tell you how many times I've left my phone places so proudly. I have no idea where I left it, because I have one of these in my hand, and it feels that little, I don't know, there's a little bit of serenity there, and
that's intentional.
And then it's very intentional, very intentional. And then I go on my walks and I sand a piece of wood, and I'm like disconnected from my phone. And so I think we need little life hacks like this to like, how do we cope with this whole dopamine bath thing that's constantly pulling at us? And this is for me like a solution that helps me a little bit.
No, I love this. This is great. I'm like,
yeah, that's yours. I'll give that to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. No, it's funny you say that. I was just having a conversation with one of my buddies who is super into the research of this. And he's just like, Zach, you do realize, like, because I was talking to him about how tough it is sometimes to break away from things, and, you know, working with clients that are just like, I just struggle so much and I don't think I can do it, as far as social media and phones and like detoxing, getting away from it.
Yeah.
And he's like, you do realize that this is like a multi-billion-dollar industry, spending millions and millions of dollars with the most professional scientific minds creating addictive things. Like, they are every day coming up with ways to make it more and more addictive. Whether it's coloring, the designs, like you've got the some of the brightest minds doing this. So you're not just working against your own like will. Like, you have the will, I have the will, everyone listening has the will inside of themselves to do it and the ability to do it. But you have to set yourself up with these hurdles that make it harder to give in to the phones. So like, I mean, one of them is grayscaling everything. So make it gray so that your eyes aren't drawn to the colors as much. Take the apps that you normally just like open up, you know exactly where it is, and you just, you know, you open your phone. We've all done this. I'm guilty of this. Don't worry. This is not just a thing I'm telling you to do, but you open up your phone and you go and check like the same 4 apps every time. Scroll through, see if there's any new notifications. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. If there is one, you're even more heightened, and then you're more addicted. Like, that's what I mean. Like, turn off notifications except for absolutely like a phone call, like the absolutely necessary ones. Grayscale it. Take those apps that you're used to going and go hide them in some random folder, so you have to search it. I'm serious.
Have a friend do it. Have a friend do it.
It sounds so funny, but even if it's like 2 swipes on the page away and then up in the top corner where you can't just reach it immediately, like, those are hurdles that make it harder to get to those things that then give us that dopamine. And so start with that. And that's a simple thing. So like, don't even worry about your screen time. Just do that first. And then you'll just watch. It probably will cut down your screen time a little bit.
Yeah.
And then from there, okay, now I'm going to be more intentional. I'm going to schedule a time where I just leave my phone inside and I go for a walk. And depending on where you're at, maybe it's cold, maybe you're in the city, whatever, but still, just being outside of your normal environment is huge. But if you can, go walk in some grass and do it barefoot. And I'm not like totally sold on the research of like the grounding and the actual like, you know, electrons and stuff that happen. But there is something about just feeling the grass in your toes and feeling your feet on the ground and dirt and like the sensations that are there. And it's not the same as just being in socks and shoes all the time. So those little things, like
take a piece of serenity wood.
Take a piece of.
I have both hands. Wood. I'm sanding a piece while I'm walking.
What kind of grit do you use for this? That's pretty
I get
fine.
it to 1,000.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it takes a long time.
I don't know that I've seen 1,000 grit
so awesome.
sandpaper.
I got a piece in my pocket. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, perfect.
No, that's awesome. I love the idea of giving yourself some barriers or some boundaries, some little hurdles to make it harder to hit those dopamine surges. My daughter Arlie is like very emotionally bright, and she's intelligent as well. She gets her mom's goodness as well, and it's really cool. She actually, I forget the name of the app. She told me a few weeks ago, but she has an app on her phone that helps her with this process. And she recognizes the problem, and the app is designed to give her her own restriction process and to alert her if she's over scrolling. If it'll like ping her, hey, you've spent a fair amount of time doom scrolling, consider, and it does it in a tactful way where it's self-induced. Yeah. It's not coming from without or some other parents or something. And I just think, I'm like, honey, I'm so proud of you. Like, that's so awesome. Yeah. But super cool that there are like people that are in the tech space that are creating tools like to help us with that space.
Yeah. I mean, if you can't beat them, join them type of thing. Like, phones aren't going anywhere.
No.
So learning how to use it as a tool that's most resourceful. I actually like my watch has cellular on it, and I love it because I can leave my phone and still answer a phone call or get a text, even if it's far away. And that's been a game changer for me. Like my screen time dropped down quite a bit because I'm not finding myself, you know, and I work on social media. So I always have an excuse of like, well, I work on Instagrams when I'm responding to messages or whatever, but really like I'm still getting the dopamine fix. Like it still is attaching, you know, my brain to this thing. So being more intentional about that. And then the one more thing that came to mind that I was just thinking about prior to this podcast is with phones, with nature, with our biological necessities and the physiological responses we have naturally that we're kind of hijacking by having phones, we also just need people more. Like we've got the dopamine and the serotonin that happens with the, you know, neurotransmitters. We could get into that. That's big. And it's just constant, but oxytocin is like the love drug, right? It's like the one that naturally brings us together and helps us to feel some connectedness and feel a little bit of calm and peace. And you don't get that when you're watching someone online. You don't get that when you're even FaceTiming. Like, it's not the same as human interaction. And I love FaceTime, and I love being able to video call friends and family and people, especially that are far away. And also I find myself sometimes doing that and then going to bed when I could have gone and said hi to someone in person. I could have gone and gotten a hug. You know, there's a lot of research you've probably heard of, like an 8-second, like we need an 8-second hug every day.
Make it awkward.
Like make it awkward and whatever. It's just push through the discomfort because it's allowing a release of some of that oxytocin. So going back to like the nature thing of finding a friend outside that's reading a book and saying hi to them. Like, you don't need to hug a stranger. I'm not saying do that. Don't do that. But finding intentional time to actually go out and do something with someone else. Like, yeah, it's not easy. It's way easier to just scroll on your phone for 4 hours in the evening. But like, you know that other people need it just as much as you do. And so making that a priority, scheduling it so that you can't bail, right? It's if you're just waiting around and be like, well, maybe something will happen, or I might go out to my friend's birthday party or something, but TBD, you know, like we'll see. But if you actually schedule it and commit to those things, then you're going to be forced to kind of go do it. And when you go do it, you'll never regret it. You don't regret it.
Yeah.
You only wish you would have done it more.
Social connection is one of the keys to emotional wellness. Like, it's just so healthy for us. We are social creatures. Even folks that are quote unquote introverts, they still need that connection, that discussion, that vulnerability, that let's talk shop, you know. So healthy, so healthy. The other phenomenon that's super cool in nature is a resetting of your circadian rhythms and your cortisol. Mm-hmm. Super rad. I think we have so much like fake light, and we have a lighted house, and we have lighted phones. And in the wilderness, there are obstacles, hurdles to that. You have a battery that was going to run out if you keep the lights on, and you know you have to wear a flashlight or a headlamp, and it's not like you can just turn the lights on. And so because of that phenomenon, that you get more of that evening light in your eyes, there's a natural release of like melatonin, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of sleepy, and it's only like 9 o'clock. And then you go to bed at a reasonable hour, and then you sleep, and the sun comes up, and you're like, hey, there's sun. And you get that morning sun in your eyes, and you're hopefully foraging for mushrooms at that time. And then you just get a reset of all of the cortisol. Like, there's a spike in the morning of cortisol that's beautiful, and then it kind of comes down, and then the sun sets and it comes down even more, and then you eat a dinner and then it comes down even more, and then you're sleepy and you go to bed. And just like normal rhythm stuff that we were meant to do, that are because of technology, they kind of mess with that a little bit.
Oh yeah. If I had $1 for every time someone said, I don't sleep well, and then I check their screen time with them, and it's like 7-8 hours, and it's like well into the midnight, 1 o'clock time. Yep. I would have a lot of dollars, because that's everyone. And once again, I'm guilty of this at times too. And I try to like get back to it, but there's this, what's the rule? Have you heard of this? It's like the 3-2-1 rule, where it's like no working like 3 hours before bed, no eating or drinking 2 hours before bed, and no phone like 1 hour. I think it should be like as far before bed as possible.
3-3-3.
3-3-3. Yeah. Like, but anyway, just, that's something that I've tried to do a little bit more of, is like my bedtime reminder goes on my phone at like 8 o'clock, and then I want to be asleep by like 9:30, 10ish usually. So when that bedtime reminder goes off, I go and plug it in away from like downstairs in the kitchen or something. And then I go up and try to go to sleep and read a book, and I sleep so much better. Like, it is so noticeable when I'm on my phone all the way up to when I'm trying to go to sleep, and how able I am to fall asleep. Also how well I sleep, because I end up usually like waking up a few times if I use my phone all the way up until sleeping. Yeah. But if I had a couple hours beforehand, my brain's already in the shutdown process. You know, we hit, what is it? Control, delete, shutdown, you know, like the old computers.
That's right.
And so it was just phasing out, as, like you said, the cortisol just drops.
Totally. Zach, this is so fun. Thank you so much. Anything else that you have for our audience in closing? I really want to at some point dig into the self-worth space. I think a lot of people struggle with that. Yeah. And I think it's exacerbated by the social media space where, oh, look at everybody's perfection, and look at their perfect pictures. Look at their perfect family. Look at this perfect. And then it creates this like this like reflection internally, like, oh, they're so much better than I am less than. And so there's a lot of that, I think, struggle with the self-worth space. I don't know that we have time to unpack that today.
No,
but
we'll have to get together again. But just as kind of a short message on that is, I heard this analogy one time where we're all, and we've all probably heard this, like, we are on our own journey. Like, I'm on my path, you're on your path, everyone is on their own path. And we start to look at other people's paths and compare ourselves to where they're at based on where we are. Right. Maybe I'm 31 and they're 31 and they're all the way up here and I'm right here. And I'm like, should I be further? Like, what am I doing with my life? You start to question everything, but comparison is the thief of joy. We've all heard that old adage, like, you are not meant to live anyone else's path. And if you try to, then you're going to go further and further and further away from the alignment of who you actually are. And so really, like, one of the most beautiful things that I've seen happen in people's lives, and I'm working on happening in my own life, is really just letting go of that expectation I have to have for myself to be like someone else in the timeline of someone else, and just embracing, like, I can't be behind my own timeline. I can't be ahead in my own timeline, because my timeline is happening live as I'm living. And when you can really kind of like lean into that visualization and just recognize, oh, you're right, I have different skills and abilities and talents and hobbies and passions than these other people. Of course my life is going to look different because I'm pursuing it differently. So that's like a visual that works and helps. And then just knowing that, like, your worth has nothing to do with what you accomplish in this life. Like, if you look back on your life, I heard the story of this old man who was looking back on his life, and someone had asked him, he's on his deathbed, like, what do you regret? And he's like, oh, well, I regret spending time on things that didn't matter. And then, she follows up with, well, what do you mean? He's like, do you think anybody looks back and says, oh, I wish I would have just worked a little more, or I wish I would have just made a little more money? No, when we're on our deathbed, you look back and you say, I wish I would have spent more time with the people that I care about. I wish I would have worried less about the things that don't really matter. And I wish I would have just focused on the only things that do, which is yourself and the people around you.
That's so good. That's so good. Zach, thanks for sharing your wisdom. I think it's so cool. You've been through so much, and you've had so many unique opportunities to connect with nature, with others. And you can see it. You can see your connection, your groundedness, your super groovy presence. And I think it's so healthy, man. I love to see my people just keep growing and flourishing. So I'm really proud of you, and keep on grooving, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To our guests, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you learned some cool stuff. Our objective with this podcast is just help the community, health and wellness, learn and grow. All right. Thanks.